a lot of my teammates and the president of the team referred to me as like the Ronaldo of wheelchair basketball. I'm getting paid to play sport. I was very, very aware of a lot of Italians' thoughts towards migrants. They love me. They give me free stuff. Yeah. Now, I was Jordan. I was the basketball player. Yay! He's amazing. There's a knife crime epidemic, and it's these black boys across London killing each other. I was a bit like, no. But don't worry about, I've got to spend lots of hundreds of pounds on kit. No, you don't. Just do it. Yeah. And why has she got more followers than me? Why is they making more money than me? And why, did they get that job? And why? Yeah. The quicker you can fail, the quicker you will learn. But don't dwell on decision. Decide fast. Make a decision and own it.
You have 3 seconds to shit yourself, and then you got to get on with it. Welcome back to the Not Quite Pod. Today we've got Jordan with us. Jordan, do you just quickly want to introduce yourself and let everyone know a bit about yourself?
Hi Charlie, hi everybody. My name is Jordan Jarrett Bryan. I am a sports journalist and sports broadcaster. I run a production company and just a general decent bloke.
Love this. I'm actually really excited about this. It's because your history was so interesting to read into, and to where you are now, it's like quite a journey. And that's actually leads me quite nicely onto my first question, which I always do with my guests, is to give us their sort of journey this far, to give a bit of context for anyone that doesn't know you about where you are now versus where you started out. Could you talk us through that?
Yeah, sure. There's a lot, so I'll try and condense it so it doesn't take up 17 hours of your podcast. So I'm a journalist. I'm a sports journalist now. I'm the sports correspondent for Channel 4 News. Been there now. Been with Channel 4 News for 12 years. Been with Channel 4 for nearly 15 years. But it all started from when I was very, very young. I had a huge passion and love for sports. Love playing sports, love watching sports, arguing about sports. And the only other thing at school that I was really, really good at and interested in was English and writing. I really enjoyed writing, so it kind of was inevitable, I guess, when I kind of got into my early to mid-teens, that I would go into journalism. And where I am now, it took me a while to get there, but to get to sports journalism, just combined my two passions, really. School was great, loved school. That's probably why I didn't do very well at school, because I maybe enjoyed it a little bit too much. I started writing at a very young age. I started writing at 13 for a magazine in South London, called Live, for a youth magazine. And then within 6-8 months, they offered me the role as the editor of the magazine. Loved it, got lots of experience for the next 7 or 8 years there, wrote for various national publications and newspapers and magazines. By the time I left Live at 21, I had a portfolio that was like just really strong of people that I'd written for. Did a bit of radio for a couple of years. And so from 13, I was also playing wheelchair basketball. So whilst I was doing the journalism thing, I was playing wheelchair basketball. And then when I got to about 25, 26, I got offered the chance to go to Italy and play professional basketball there for about 5 years, and loved it. That was amazing. Wow. Yeah, it was a very small province in not the south. It's just, well, actually, where I was, a town called Rieti, there's a monument, a statue that actually, by that statue, and the Rieti locals are very proud of this. That is, they say, the exact centre point of Italy. So when you're by that statue, you are literally, and Italy, obviously, the geography of it is like a boot shape. But where that statue, where Rieti is, it's exactly just as much space going to the north as there is to the south from Rieti. Anyway, so I was there for 5 years, loved it, amazing. Channel 4 won, while I was out there, Channel 4 won the rights for the Paralympic Games in 2012. Mm-hmm. This is 2009. I didn't know about this because I was in Italy. And after the 5th year that I was there, so every time we'd come back to the UK for off season, the summer, see your family, and then go back out for the new season. This off season, somebody told me that Channel 4 were looking for reporters and journalists and presenters for their games coverage in 3 years' time.
Yeah,
I should go for it. So I applied, did it. They trained us up for a couple of years, Channel 4 they. Because I'd done lots of journalism. I'd done print journalism, but I'd done no broadcast journalism. So I didn't know about TV.
Yeah.
So they had to train us up to do live TV. Anyway, did the 2012 games. That was amazing. Great success. Won lots of awards. Off the back of it, I got a job at Channel 4 News as their sports reporter. And I've been there 12 years now, and I'm still hanging on. That's kind of my life, really. I didn't chat about my DJing, my club promoting, and all the other things I've done as well. I've done a lot of things, but that in, I guess, 2 minutes is my is what I've been up to since I was about 5 years old.
I love that, and I love as well, like how early you started out, like. Most kids, I mean, even if you think of me, like I didn't really start becoming sort of entrepreneurial, looking into different careers until to be honest, till I left school, really. When I left school was when I started investigating. So it's amazing to hear like how early you found the passion of writing.
I loved it.
And really went for it.
I loved it. I knew very early on it was for me because I enjoyed creative writing. I liked in lessons the kind of task of trying to write 1,000 words on, something creative. I found that very easy and very enjoyable. So, it was a very young age. I realised this is for me.
Me and you are opposites. I'm dyslexic, so writing is like the death of me. Hence why I run a podcast.
Well, if the podcasts were back then, to be fair, I'd probably be doing a podcast before writing as well. So it's all that timing.
I want to come back to a point you mentioned earlier about, obviously you said you played professional wheelchair basketball in Italy. One thing that's not really spoken about is disability and professional sport. It's always spoken about in the Olympic context. And I know that's a big part of your story, but what was it like being a professional athlete as a disabled person? Because I think when people think of professional athletes, they think of your rugby players, your football players, your very traditional roots. So what was it like in your context?
It was, I didn't have any alternative to compare it to. So I don't know how it felt in comparison to an able-bodied professional athlete because I was never that. I was only disabled. So, but I don't think it was any different. The scale was obviously very, very different. Being a professional wheelchair basketball player and what I was getting paid to play the sport would be very, very different to what a professional Premier League player would get paid. So the scale is obviously different. Yeah. But the principle, I guess, is the same. I'm getting paid to play sport. Do you know what I mean? And there's very few people on the planet that get paid money, get a wage, get a salary to play sport. I loved it. I was, a lot of my teammates and the president of the team that I played for in Italy referred to me as like the Ronaldo of wheelchair basketball, because not only as far as because I was the like superstar. It was a very small town, and I'm not Italian, clearly, so I stood out, so I got a lot of attention. People would come to watch us on the weekends and play games, and everyone in the town knew who I was. Do you know what I mean? And that was nice. That attention and that adulation and that that level of love was amazing. Do you know what I mean? You go to the grocery store because the bread don't, it's on me. I didn't and don't drink, but you go to the pub with some friends. First round, Jordan's here. It was amazing. You get stopped by grannies walking their dogs. I learned Italian very quickly, but they just stopped for a quick chat about nothing really, but they did that because I was the professional, and in their eyes, at least, I wasn't, but in their eyes, famous celebrity wheelchair basketball player in their town. And I guess it's one thing if you're doing that in London, but London's a big city where no one really cares and no one knows who you are. But you do it in a province, in a town like Rieti, where the population is I don't know, 5,000 people. Do you know what I mean? You stand up like a sore thumb for good reason. So it felt great. I loved it. I literally woke up, went to the gym, trained, potted around for a couple of hours, spot up with some friends, and then we'd have an evening session as a team, train. You go home, eat, shower, and then you do it again the next day. It was like, I get paid for that. Do you know what I mean? It was amazing.
How? Because a lot of people, obviously, like you say, when they think of professional sport, everyone sort of leans towards football. And if it's not too much of an intrusive question, how much were the wages playing professionally as a disabled athlete?
So, I mean, the professional leagues in wheelchair basketball, I don't know about now, but then it was Turkey, Spain, Italy, and Germany. There were leagues in the UK, in France, in Israel, Belgium had a league as well, but the professional ones were those first four. I played for the first 2 years in the second division, and I was getting, what was I getting paid, man? In that first 2 years, it was in euros as well. So I think I was on something like, I think I was on like 500 euros. Was it a week? No, it must have been more than that. I think I'd have been on like...
Because 500 euros would be about $2,000 a month.
Oh, maybe it was then. I've got 500 euros in my head for some reason. I think I was on 500 euros for the first 2 seasons. And when we got promoted, it just under double that. So let's just say, I don't know, 800 euros a month for the final 3 seasons was what I was getting paid. Now that doesn't sound like, you know what I mean? I'm getting my maths right. So I remember
I've challenged him now.
You've got to be thinking now about what I was getting paid. So I was getting paid a good wage, and what you have to also remember is you see that money. So when you're a professional athlete, you're not paying for rent, you're not paying for travel, you're paying for your groceries, but. We had a lot of team dinners, so when you go as a team for dinners, the club paid for that. So whatever salary I was getting, that was in my pocket. I wasn't right. I'm getting 500 euros, a month, but I've got to pay rent out of that. I've got to pay for travel. No. That's all. That's what you're seeing in your pocket. So I was on a decent salary. Maybe it was 500 euros a week. It might have been a week, you know. I think it was a week. And that first 2 years, I remember thinking, this is great. Until some of my friends who from the UK were also playing Italian leagues. They were in the top division. They were telling me what they got. And I was like, oh, wow. Do you know what I mean? I thought I was getting a nice wage, and they were getting 3-4 times what I was getting. So there was, I don't know about now, but there was money to be made in playing professional wheelchair basketball. And it was a nice life. It was a nice life.
I mean, that's super interesting. I think you're the first person I've been able to ask that question to. And it's really interesting because I think it's not a career path that people would consider. Because I think as well as a youngster, it's always shown as like, it's just a passion sport, or like sport is just a passion or something you do for fun. Yes. But there is a career there that you could grab hold of.
100%. I mean, to get paid anything near that to play a disability sport was amazing for me. But I always just speak to lots of younger wheelchair basketball players when I come back to the UK, just tell them, like, if you work on your skills, if you get better, you can get paid to do this. UK doesn't pay because they don't have the same system over here as they do abroad. But I was like, you can get paid for this. Actually, it was 500 a week. It was a week. But I tell them, like, if you push yourself, train hard, dedicate yourself, you can make a living easily out of this, man.
Yeah. I mean, the other question I wanted to ask, because it's something that comes up when I speak to my friends that are people of colour, is Italy often gets a bit of a rep as certain regions can be quite racist. And it was really interesting to hear your experience of it. It seemed very positive. Was that the overarching experience when you were in
So it was interesting because, I mean, I never received any kind of overt racism when I was there. I can't say that I did, because I didn't. Everybody was nice to me, was kind to me, was good to me. I never had any experiences where I felt threatened or in danger in any way. But it's so funny you asked that question, because I was speaking to my girlfriend, who's Italian actually, about this. What's today? Today's Tuesday, Sunday I think it was, and we were talking about the fact that it's one of those countries where I was very, very aware of a lot of Italians' thoughts towards migrants. So whenever I went to, say, somewhere like Rome, which was only like an hour from where we were, there's a lot of African migrants that come to Italy. They come by the boat, and then they come to places like Rome, and they don't have a job. So a lot of them are begging, a lot of them on the streets, a lot of them are hustling, right? And the attitude towards those people, and it's no different to here in the UK. Do you know what I mean? So I don't want to pin this just on Italy, but the attitude and the tone that I would see, the way they were treated, made me feel really uncomfortable. And let me tell you why it made me feel really uncomfortable, was because it was in stark contrast to how they dealt with me. So I was saying to my girlfriend, it's interesting that because I was seen as this, celebrity wheelchair basketball player, I was adding value to them. They love me. They give me free stuff. Yeah. They would talk to me like I was the king. Do you know what I mean? I was Jordan. I was the basketball player. Yay! He's amazing. But someone's got the same skin color as me, that's come from Libya, come from any country in Africa, that is homeless, that is poor, that is struggling. They were kind of like, the attitude was very, very different. And I was very aware of that, very aware of how they distinguish between me, a black man, and that black man, but because of perceived value. And again, that's something that I don't think is unique to Italy, not at all. But if you know the history of Italy, you will know that they have had a very nationalistic, conservative past, and people that look like me haven't often been welcomed to places like Italy. And I think the only reason I was welcomed, I had a lot of good people around me, Charlie, but the main reason I think I was welcomed was because I was adding value. The minute I start adding value is the minute that they kind of treat you, I'm sure they would treat you differently. So no, I wouldn't say that. I can't sit here and say I was racially abused or saw any racism towards me, but I'm not an idiot. I'm very, very aware of why there wasn't any direct racism towards me, and B, if they did feel racism towards me, why they kept their mouth shut and didn't say it to me overtly, because they couldn't.
Yeah. I mean, also, you had the added part to play with as well. There's the ableism part of it. Was there much of that as well? I mean, obviously, you're minding the pun, you're rolling around with a professional wheelchair rugby team or wheelchair basketball team. So it's pretty obvious, and also it's pretty cool. But as well, again, there's different cultures in different countries in the way they view disability.
Yeah, I mean, I've never used my wheelchair apart from when I was playing or training, right? So walking around, the town centre, or going to the shops, or going to the Piazza, or wherever, I'd always walk. So it wasn't, and I mean, even if I went with some of my friends and teammates that were in chairs, nobody would have known that I was disabled. So my encounter with disability, or people with ableism attitudes, I never really saw that, because I've got what I refer to as disability privilege. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't know that I'm disabled until I tell you. Whereas experience for a lot of my friends who are in chairs or do use crutches, I've always been aware of how we're treated differently. Do you know what I mean? So I never experienced any kind of ableism myself, but that's only because no one knew. no one knew I was disabled. And I'd go even as far as to say, go back to my last answer, even those that maybe came to watch us play on a weekend and knew that, oh, that's Jordan. I saw me the next day in the supermarket. Oh, that's Jordan. He's disabled. I've seen him with one leg pain in a wheelchair. They still wouldn't, I don't think, be overtly ableist towards me, because, again, I'm put on a pedestal. They saw me as Jordan, the great wheelchair basketball player that scored 30 points at the game the weekend and won their city the game. Do you know what I mean? So I'm very aware of my experience of how people see me. It's very, very different in comparison to some of my teammates and friends.
I mean, it's all a matter of like the situation. I think to give someone and say this place is ableist or this place is racist is a really difficult line to argue, because it's like anywhere you get some people that are great, some people that are terrible. It's just,
yeah. I mean,
that's just part of life.
Racism, there's ableism, there's sexism, there's homophobia in every country, in every city, everywhere in the world.
100%.
Why? Because there are people everywhere in the world. Where there are people, there's going to be differences in opinions and attitudes and mentalities and how people see other people. So that's just what it is. My thing is, don't dare bring that to my door, because I'm not going to have it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I just want to circle back to something that came up in the conversation earlier. You briefly touched on, obviously, how you got into TV. Yeah. Can you go into a bit more of your experiences in TV? I know a lot of it started with 2012, but then obviously now you're regularly on TV. So, and a lot of people, particularly, I feel like in the disability space, we all kind of want that more representation. So we all feel like, oh, I really want to be a TV presenter because I want to bring representation to the community. You're actively doing that. So what has your journey been? Yeah,
so my journey's been really fun. I mean, I didn't get into TV until I was 29, I believe it was. That's when I started training to be in TV Channel 4. And it was fluke. It was pure fluke and circumstantial, Charlie. Honestly, it's because I didn't plan to get into TV. I was a journalist and went into wheelchair basketball, and I was happy. In fact, it was awkward because before going back for the sixth season, I told the president I wanted to renegotiate my contract. I wanted more money. And they initially said, we can't give you any more money. And I said, okay, well, you're going to have to give me something. I'm going to have to look elsewhere. They said, we're really sorry. We want you to come back, but we can't pay you any more money. So I was like, okay, well, then I can't come back. Anyway, came back to me a week later and said, all right, we can offer you X. And I was a bit like, that's great. I was more looking at why. It wasn't much more, but it wasn't what I was looking for. They said, no, honestly, we can't. I said, it's fine. I'm not trying to, be an idiot here. I understand you've got what you've got, right? So if you can't give more, you can't give more.
Yeah.
A few days later, phoned me again. Upped it by a little bit more, but I was still a bit like I'd had offers from another club, so I was in a strong position. So at this point now, I am playing hardball. Anyway, I said, mate, honestly, I was like, Paolo, I can't. I need this. I need this figure.
Yeah.
Anyway, then comes up the opportunity from Channel 4, who'd seen my screen test that I'd done a few weeks earlier, and said, we want to make you part of our training up of new talent to be part of our games in 3 years' time. There's no guarantee you'll be there, but we want to train you, and if you pass the training test, boom, you'll be on the ski, you'll be on our roster.
Yeah.
So then I have a dilemma to make. So I'm like, okay. Meantime, my president comes back to me and he gives me what I was asking for.
And you got to go
like, this is awkward now. This is awkward now because I'm really thankful for the offer, but I'm going to go back to the UK and pursue a career, hopefully in broadcast journalism. And look, they weren't happy at first, but I don't regret doing it. Now, at the time, it was a gamble because it was training, right? So at the end of training, they could have been like, right, that was great, Jordan, but haven't quite made the cut. We're going to go with these guys over here. So Alex Brooker was in my, he was in my, that's where I met Alex. He was in my class as well. So it was a gamble, but I said to myself, I've been trying to be a sports journalist for like all my life. So I've got to just go for it, right? I turned down this huge contract that I negotiated to pursue this over here. And then I took it. They did add me as part of the roster of presenters and new talent. And then 2 years went by, and as I explained, it kind of went from there. So there was no initial desire to want to be a TV reporter.
Yeah.
But I was good at it. I worked hard at it. And, I'm here 15 years later. And I say to other people, especially now with the internet and with this podcasting and YouTubing, there's so many ways to kind of broadcast. You don't have to look at TV anymore. TV is obviously still a massive pull, but the numbers don't lie, right? Digital is growing, and it's going to come a point. too far from now where digital platforms supersede linear TV. So my TV entry point was just for me taking a bit of a gamble and a punt. I backed myself. And I'm here now, and that's kind of the message I take from it. If you back yourself and you work hard, more often than not, you'll get what you deserve.
I hear that, and it's something I actually wanted to ask you, having listened to that, is how did you wrap your head around the whole, because it's something I think a lot of people do, with like, you got two opportunities. One's the logical option of going, right, I've got a fixed contract, I know what I'm going into, or I take a gamble, but it's more in a line with what I want to be doing. How did you marry that in your head? Because I think that's a journey that a lot of people go on.
Sorry, repeat that. Marry.
So obviously you said with the basketball contract and taking the opportunity with London 2012, yes. You finally got the number you wanted, and then they came in and said, oh wait, what about this opportunity? What were some of the internal monologues that you were having with yourself about, I could go with this is the logical option, it's guaranteed contract, it's X amount of money, or I take a gamble where I could end up out of a job, but it's more in the direction I want to take my life?
Well, for me, Charlie, it's two things. So, first of all, I'm inherently a risk taker. That's just the way I am. I take gambles that don't always pay off, and in fact, more often than not, they don't rather than they do. So, I'm wired that way. I'm a risk taker. But the second thing was, I just think life's too short, and I wanted to be a sports journalist all my life, and I just thought, hang on a minute, I get to be a sports reporter at a Paralympic Games on home soil in my home city, covering the sport that I've been playing for the best part of, at that point, 15 years. Like, I've been a journalist, so I've got the journalism media angle in my back pocket. I know wheelchair basketball. I've been playing it 15 years. Like, it's in London. I just thought, I'm going to back myself. So it wasn't really a difficult decision for me, because it felt like the stars were all aligning, right? And it was like, this is literally your moment. I had a joke with one of the producers about a year after. I said, if you could have picked your perfect reporter for those games, it would have been me. And not because I'm being big-headed, but if you right, someone that's from London, ideally, home city, tick. Somebody who knows Paralympic sports, play that, tick. Someone that knows about media, tick. Do you know what I mean? So it was all those things that kind of, someone that was young, tick. I was young then. So for me, it just felt like this was the forces telling me this is your moment. So to turn that down for more money. Oh, sorry, that's another point as well. I've never really been money orientated. I like money. I spend money. I understand the value of money, but I'm not, I don't really take decisions based off of money, especially if it's money versus the potential of fulfilling my dream. So it was never really money. The money, and listen, it was a good offer. it was a good offer, but that never really was going to be what ultimately decided which decision I took.
It's really interesting to say, it's that whole thing of, I always have this little voice in my head that says you only regret the risks you didn't take. So I always go, I've said it on here before, there's a little rule I have in my head of like, you have 3 seconds to shit yourself, and then you got to get on with it. That, and then in my head I'll go 3, 2, 1, go, and just go with it. And
you know what? I'm not really big on New Year's resolutions anymore. But this year I said to myself, one of my big things is decide fast. Decide fast. So don't procrastinate. Don't overthink it. I mean, some things need a little bit of thinking, a bit of thought time, but generally decide fast. And look, if it's the wrong decision come 24 hours later, so be it. I missed out on that opportunity or that, then cool. But don't dwell on decision. Decide fast. Make a decision and own it. Be accountable for what you've decided to do. Be responsible for what you decided to do, and live with that. Don't, but if decide fast. So I think there's something in that. It's the things that you don't do that you end up kind of, I should have done that, should have done that. No, just decide and own it.
Yeah, and plus you could only make a judgment call on the information you've got
Of
at the
course.
time. If something changes further down the line, you can't
No, of
predict
course
that. So
not.
you just got to go, all right, I didn't know that at the time. Now I do. That's a shame. Move on.
And look where I am now. I highly doubt you'd be interviewing me right now if I'd have stuck with my contract offer on that 5 year. Let's say I played a couple more years in Italy. I wouldn't be on TV right now. Or I might. You never know how things kind of work out, but the chances are slimmer. So it worked out well for me. And just on that as well, the irony of that is my very first gig at the Paralympic Games 3 years later, when 2012 came around in London, was covering the men's and women's, but I did mainly the men's wheelchair basketball team. I would say 75% of that men's team were the same guys I was playing with at junior level 5 years earlier, and I left 3 years earlier. So I'm just reporting, I'm interviewing my mates. So that was for me a validation that I made the right decision, because I'd come full circle now, and I was reporting at the Paralympic Games on the team that I'd left behind. Do you know what I mean? So things generally happen for a reason.
Did that make it any easier when you were interviewing? Because I always think, like, when you've got a good rapport with someone, it makes that whole journey of interviewing a lot easier. So I can imagine it's your first couple of gigs where you're like, shit, I'm at the London 2012 Paralympics, where it's on home turf, everyone's talking about it, and I'm here, little old bees on telly.
It made it easy for me, because I mean, I'm not a nervous person generally anyway, but it made it easier for me because these are just friends of mine and they respected my job. I had to ask certain questions. And I don't remember any of them being overly uncomfortable, but even if they were, that's my job. If my best mate didn't perform well in a game, I've got to ask him, like, come on, bro, like, that wasn't very good. That wasn't good enough. How did you miss those baskets, that layup? Why you performed? I've got to ask that question. And you'd like to think that they are professional enough to respect that I'm not having a personal dig. I'm just asking a question as part of my job. So no, it was all good. It was all good.
Coming full circle, you also now run a production or co-founded a production company. Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So Blackademic Productions is my production company. It's been going back 7 years now. And on the face of it, we're just a production company, right? I've got shooters, editors, producers, sound team. And we if you've got an event and you need a camera set up to film it and edit a 2-minute video at the end of it, we can do that. We do music videos. We do pilots, we do it all. But it all came from, I'd been at Channel 4 News at this point now for about 4 or 5 years. This was during like peak Brexit years as well. So this would have been 2017. Yeah, but about that time. Maybe a bit, but about then. And there was also, so I set up Blackademic for 2 reasons. One, because I noticed around that time there was a lot of rhetoric about black people that I wasn't happy with. So at the time you had your Piers Morgans, you had your Nick Ferraris, your Nigel Farages, your Lawrence Foxes, talking about black people in a way that wasn't to my liking. So at the time it was a whole, there's a knife crime epidemic and it's these black boys across London killing each other. And I was a bit like, no. We're not going to have that. We're not going to stand for that.
Yeah.
But rather than complain about that, and they were given big platforms to spout this nonsense, but I thought rather than complain about that, I'll set up my own show. So I set up a debate show called It's All Blackademic. It was a panel show that I hosted with an all-black panel and discussing different issues, some quite serious and important, and some were quite light-hearted and frivolous. But it was almost a safe space for us to talk about the issues affecting our community. And I just thought that was my answer to giving my community a voice that I didn't hear happening in the mainstream. The second reason was because at Channel 4 News we do a thing called a disco. So short for discussion. So if you watch Channel 4 News, we do a news report, and then they may go to the studio live, and then it was Jon Snow, but Krishnan or Kathy in the studio will have a guest. So they'll be like, right, now let's talk to Charlie. Charlie, you've just seen that report there. What's your thoughts on the numbers going up on blah, 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 blah? And then have an there might be 2 guests, whatever it may be. Yeah. And what I noticed was, every single time they did a news report or a disco on anything to do with politics, history, science, finance. The guests were always white men. They were always white men. But if we did a news report on something to do with entertainment, music, sport, or even knife crime, the guests that invited in were always black. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this because in my circles, I know lots of professionals who are black across writers, scholars, pilots, business leaders, politicians, doctors, lawyers. Why are these guys not being invited to Channel 4 News?
Yeah.
Things have changed and we're across that now. But at the time I was like, no, so that's another reason my setup is all Blackademic. And I just thought I want to invite these people onto my show to have their say. Anyway, we did 7 seasons of that. That's on YouTube still. You can check it out at blackademic.com. That's Blackademic with a K, no C. So Blakademik. It's spelled different, but I've got to spell it out because people always put it in as it sounds, which makes sense.
You nailed it.
Yes, I always forget sometimes as well. I got it right this time. And then we were filming all this content for ourselves on our own platform. But what I realised, Charlie, was that I was using the same production crew. And I just thought, And every time I did something for Channel 4 or another production company, and I did a broadcast from somewhere, the crew behind the camera were always white men. They were always white men. So my thing was, no disabled here, no women here, no black people here. What's going on?
Yeah.
And I did a bit of research, and I found a team that were diverse, and my crew is diverse. We have disabled people on my team. We have black people on my team. We have white people on my team. We have women on my team. We have young, old. I don't care. As long as you're good. Just be good. Don't mess up my shoe. That's all I care about. Don't mess up my production. I don't care what colour you are or how able you are. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of how it started. And now we've worked with Netflix, we've worked with LinkedIn, we've worked with some huge corporate companies, but we also work with content creators. We also work with startups and events. Events is our big thing now. If you've got an event happening and you need one videographer with a gimbal, I've got those guys. You need a whole production team. I've got that too.
That's amazing. I mean, it brings you on quite nicely to one of the questions I was going to ask, which is what's the highest point you've got to with Blackademic in terms of like, what's something you go, fuck, never thought I'd be doing that, or working with that person, or
okay. So, are you into football? Who's your team?
I'm a Chelsea boy through and through, unfortunately.
It's going so well. So you know this player. We've done some work, 3 or 4 gigs with Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah.
And he's someone that I've got a huge respect for. I think he's a brilliant player. We've done a few bits of work with him, and he enjoys working with us. His team told me.
Yeah.
And we like working with him, and to be working with someone like Kevin De Bruyne is massive for my company, and massive for me. He's probably the standout person. But for me, the most significant thing that I would say I've achieved with my company, and it might sound a little bit pithy, but it's the response people give to me after we work with them. So it's the whole, we've really enjoyed working with you, or your crew are amazing, really, really kind of personable. Because my crew, we're not stiff.
Yeah.
My crew is an extension of me. We are vibes. We're fun. We play on set. We play music. We joke. We laugh. We have vibes. Yeah. But we're professional, and we get the job done. Yeah. We meet our deadlines. And just in business, reputation is very, very important. I actually think 100%. It's 50% of doing well. If your reputation is not good, it doesn't really matter how good your marketing is, or how good your promo is, or how much fancy kit you've got. If your reputation is not good, that will stunt your growth. So knowing that our reputation, as far as I'm aware, is a good one, that I take a lot of pride in. Just knowing we've done a good job and we've left an impression on people. And people comment on, oh, I've never seen an all-black crew before. Oh, I've never seen a crew that's half black and other race. I've never seen a crew with a blind researcher. I've never seen a crew before with, more women than men. and I love that. It shows that I'm doing my little small piece to shake up the industry.
100%, and it comes back to that, like you said, it's that invisible PR, that bit of like, unfortunately having to always be on because you never know who you're going to speak to. And it's like you say, one of my highlights of, because oftentimes I think with me, the imposter syndrome comes in with doing the content creation. And one of the bits that reaffirms it is as soon as that one person one parent comes to me and goes, "Thank you for doing what you do. You've shown me that my son can do this, this, and this, or daughter can do this, this, this," and that's the bit where it goes, "Okay, yeah, I'm doing the right thing." And I think those little nuggets. It's nothing to do with like I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing companies, but it's that personable interaction with people that I feed off of.
Totally agree. It's important. It's important as well.
100%. Also coming on to sort of, we've done the highest high. What has been the hardest point with your company? Like, what's been the bit where you're like, this sucks, but we got to get through it?
Two things. So, you lose money. There's time we've done jobs where we've lost money. Yeah. There's been jobs where we've made errors, and to try and rectify the error, you have to take that cost, because it's not the client's fault that, you know, the edit wasn't right. It's not the client's fault that, you know, one of my camera operators, the shots are all wobbly and it's not fixed on tripods. That's not their fault. That's my fault. So losing money is always very frustrating. But that's part of lessons learned. I think the most important thing though, Charlie, is that it's remembering why you're doing what you're doing and focusing on you. I think it's very easy in anything to get distracted by looking at other people's lanes and looking at what other people are doing. And, why has she got more followers than me? And, why is they making more money than me? And, why, you know, did they get that job? And why? Yeah. And it's very easy when you're seeing people doing well alongside you, who you may not even think are as good as you, doing well, and to not get distracted into kind of getting caught up in what they're doing. Yeah. And I think the hardest thing for me, and I'm much better at it now than I was before, is just remembering I'm not them. They're not me. No. And I've got to focus on what I'm doing. What's Blackademic doing? How good a job are we doing? We may have less jobs than them. We may earn less money than them. But that's okay. They're not me and I'm not them. Yeah. And also as well, and this is a really important message, I think, to people generally as well, about perceptions of people and of other businesses. What you think is happening in someone's house next door might not be what's happening next door. So what I mean by that is, just because you think the other company is getting paid a lot more money than you, it's not necessarily true. And even if it is true and they are getting paid more money than you, well, they might have more costs than you. Yeah. So they're getting paid 30 grand for a job. You're getting paid 10 grand for a job, but my overheads might be 4 grand. So I'm getting 6 grand profit. They're getting 30 grand, but their overheads might be 25 grand. So they're making 5 grand profit. So do you know what I mean? So things aren't always as they seem. And that's why you can't, unless you know what's happening, it's important just to kind of focus on what you're doing. Are you making money? Are you getting good jobs? Are you enjoying the work that you're doing? Yes. Okay, so him next door has got a better wife or better looking wife than me. What does that matter if my wife here at home I think is beautiful? It's irrelevant. Do you know what I mean? So the hardest thing for me, I think, would be going back always to remembering why am I doing what I'm doing, and focus and double down on that.
I hear you. And it's hard. I mean, I get caught in it. You look at other people and you go, Jesus, like they're miles ahead. But then also, like, if you're too distracted on what's going on over there, you can't get to there because you're not focused on what you're doing. So it's like, it's six swings and roundabouts. One thing I wanted to come back to, because it's something that comes up quite a lot in my day-to-day life, and I always get really like agitated about it. You said there, obviously, one of the hardest things is dealing with when people make mistakes. How do you deal with that as a founder, speaking to team members when they've made a mistake? Because I think there's still this little bit of old school business where it's like shout and scream, berate and do all that stuff. When I sit there and I look at it and go, you make mistakes. Everyone make mistakes. If you sit there and go, Karen, you're so shit. Why did you do this? Then she's going to make 5 more mistakes then after, because she's going to be so paranoid that she's going to make mistakes.
Of course she is. It's about embracing mistakes. And that sounds like a very Americanism, but it's true. It's about actually. I read a book years ago, and it had the sentence that. Was it Michael Jordan's book? No, some athlete's book, and they said they actually tried to make mistakes. when they're training, they're preparing, they try to make mistakes, because the quicker you can, there's this new phrase, fail fast. The quicker you can fail, the quicker you will learn.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So don't go through life trying to not make mistakes, because the longer you put off the mistake, the longer it is you're going to get the lesson to learn. But if you can learn that lesson today, all right, I've now got the rest of my life to use that lesson and learn from it. You learn that lesson in 5 years' time, that's 5 years wasted. Yeah. So I embrace mistakes. And in terms of working with my colleagues at May and how I treat them, I say to my team all the time, 2 things are important for me: prepare well and execute to the best of your ability on the day. And as long as those 2 things happen, especially in production, things go wrong. Somebody's forgotten a lens that we needed to use. Somebody's forgotten a lead for a bit of kit. Somebody's forgotten a microphone shield. Somebody's forgotten whatever, the extension cable, whatever. It's life, for humans, right? Yep. But as long as I know that you did your best and you're doing your best, I can work with that. We can dissect it. We can have a debrief about the mistake that was made. But as long as I never feel like the mistake was deliberate or for the want of trying, I can work with you. A lot of my team were young. When I first started Black, we made a lot of mistakes. A lot of my team was young. I embrace mistakes. I said to my guys, I've made mistakes. I've lost footage. I've done podcasts and pressed the wrong button and, I've deleted it. I've deleted it. I've done that. I've done that, and it's painful. I've done some of the best podcasts the world would never, ever hear. So, first of all, I'm in no position to be pointing fingers at people making mistakes. I've made mistakes. I don't have an issue with mistakes. I have an issue with not working to your maximum potential. And I have an issue if the mistake is because you didn't prepare properly. If the mistake has come because I can tell, if you'd have prepared properly and been a professional, that wouldn't have happened. But if I know the mistake has happened because it's just a human error, I don't have an issue with that. And even the mistakes that are more serious, we dissect what happened. We don't dwell on it. If there's been some big things that I've been like, you sleep on it, you cuss, you curse, you sulk, and then you get over it and you move on. It's a new day.
One of the best pieces of advice I ever got given was by one of my first managers, and it was when I was an apprentice. He went to me, look, you're going to fuck up. Yeah. But the thing is, if you tell me when you fuck up, I can fix it. Whereas if you don't tell me, I can't fix it.
There you go. If you keep it to yourself and you're quiet, we can't fix the problem. And then you compounded the error times 2. I learned this lesson years ago when I was, years and years ago, I used to DJ. And I used to do club nights. And one of the early lessons I learned about doing events and club nights is, over the course of the night, something's going to go wrong. It's just the way it is, right? You do a party or an event or a wedding or a funeral or a christening or a rave or a house party. Someone's going to forget the alcohol, or in my case, I was working in clubs. So it's like, there was a power outage in West End. This was like 20 years ago. And so it's like 11:30 at night, the party's kicking, blackout, lights off, music off, fridge is all off, everything's off, security's all off. There was a blackout at Piccadilly Circus.
Yep. What can you do?
DJ's late for his set, he's in traffic.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? You know what I mean? There's I forgot to put someone's name on the guest list and they're outside complaining. So that really taught me very early, when you go, every night I went to, expect something to go wrong. It's not negative thinking. It's just being prepared. When something does go wrong, you don't panic. You don't panic. Do you know what I mean? Making mistakes and errors and things that go wrong, it's just life.
I hear you. And on that note, it's like advice for young people. And on that note, what advice do you give to young people that want to start their own business? Obviously, you've done it. You've openly said you've lost money, made mistakes, you've had some amazing highs. But a lot of young people don't know where the hell to start. They've got an idea, but they don't know where to start. What would you say? Just do it.
Nike coined that phrase years ago, and it's the phrase I tell all young people: just do it. And people, what does that mean? If you've got an idea to set up a podcast, Don't procrastinate. Go back to my earlier answer. Just do it. I'm doing it right now off a mobile phone and a crappy, AirPods. What are they called? These wired earphones. Don't worry about, I've got to spend lots of hundreds of pounds on kit. No, you don't. Just do it.
Yeah.
You want to be a fashion designer? Start designing Start designing clothes and get used to materials. You want to be a singer? Go in the bathroom, get in front of the mirror, and start working on your pitch. You want to be a writer? Get a pen and pad and start writing about the things you're interested in. You want to be a hairdresser? Practice on your hair or your younger brother or sister's hair and do a haircut. You want to be a chef? Go in the kitchen and just start experimenting with some beans on toast and flavour the beans up a little bit and whatever it may be. You want to be a scientist? Start getting to know biology and just experiment. Just do it. Just do it.
No,
and at first, it's going to be crap. At first, it's going to be crap. You want to be a YouTuber or a vlogger, you're going to get 4 views. You're going to get 1 download. And that's your mum. But stick with it, persevere, and double down on why you're doing what you're doing. 6 months later, you've now got 64 subscribers. 6 months later, you've now got 194 subscribers, and it grows and it grows and it grows. But I would start with just do it. Find out what it is that you love. Find out what it is you're good at. Do that. And start small.
100. And also, I think to even give people a real world example, I procrastinated on this podcast for about 1.5 years before I started it.
There you go.
So I did the classic thing of going, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And then I hit the button of like, look, if we don't try, we're not going to find out. And I'd hope, and even I know this because of the lighting, but if you look at some of the original posts,
they're crap.
Jesus. I mean, I'm inviting you to go back, have a look. They're awful. I mean, our setup still needs improvements now, but it's definitely a move forward. Exactly.
And let me ask you, Charlie, was you any more ready and prepared to do the podcast when you eventually did start than you was 18 months ago?
No, because you only learned by
Exactly, so you wasted 18 months.
yeah, exactly. 100%. And it's something I kick myself about on a daily basis. Of like, oh shit, because I also feel like I missed the big peak for podcasting, and I'm like, damn it, I missed it. But it is what it is.
That's the main thing, and this is the point. I think I've got to shout out our good friend Brooke, who's doing a fantastic podcast, and she had a message that she wants to get out to the world, and she started a podcast up. It does it at home, and it's growing and growing and growing. There's so many great things that great people are doing, but you've just got to start. You've just got to start.
100%.
I think we kind of get into this this mindset of, it's got to be amazing at first. No, it doesn't. Just start. Just start.
100%. I mean, also, there is also my original footage from when I wanted to be a YouTuber on my YouTube. So you can even see the growth there. Like, my favourite thing is looking at back and going, how bad was it when I first started versus where we are now? Because it's one of the things you see the progress, and people can see the progress. So I always think if someone comes in from Channel 4, just as an example, they're going to go, Jesus, Charlie started out and it was a bit sketchy, but he's getting there. He's trying.
Man. And that's where people on Channel 4 are looking. They're not looking for the final finished product. They're looking for someone that's got potential and that's just doing it. You can't get scouted unless you're out there doing it. Do you know what I mean? So just do it, man. That's my advice.
On the note of Brooke recently appeared at Nadex, and it was something I wanted to speak to you about as well, because you also appeared at Nadex and you've done talks at Nadex, and I wanted to speak to you about how those speeches and those talks at those events to those people, how they impact the community, because obviously a load of the attendees at Nadex are those with disabilities. How important is it to have those regular discussions and regular talks for disabled people? So then I think a lot of the time we can feel like we're on our own, and it illustrates just how much we're not.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of impact, you'd have to ask the people that were there, really, how much they were impacted by what I said. But I think it's important to have conversations and share experiences. I've got a lot of confidence. I've always been a confident person, but I know that not everyone does have a lot of confidence. So if I can use my confidence and my big mouth to inspire and encourage other people to kind of get on their journey, I'm happy to do that. I'm cool to do that. So it was a great event. There were some great speakers. You mentioned Brooke, who was there, and I checked out her live podcast show. She had some great guests on there, and there were some other fantastic people there doing great things. But I think it's about bringing a safe space to our community to talk about the different things that impact on being disabled. And then once you've kind of heard that, let's then work out how we can do stuff, because I'm all for talking, because that's where things start. But if you're just talking, then we're just talking. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, no action.
Yeah, it's a starting point. So I enjoyed the event. I hope they invite me back again. If there's something that I feel that I can add a value to their audience, I'm more than happy to do that.
And I think it's just really important as well I like what they're doing with slowly bridging the gap between us and the wider community, with bringing Ronan Kemp in and things like that. So I do think there's a lot there, because I think my opinion has always been, and it's part of the reason why I've started to expand the podcast, is to really have the discussion about disability. We need to get away from disability, because it becomes an echo chamber. I use the analogy all the time of, it's basically loads of guys in wheelchairs shouting at each other that we need more ramps, and we're all sat there like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, exactly. But who's building the ramp? Who's actually actioning?
Yeah,
we all agree. Who's actioning that? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think we have to kind of get out of our own circles and our own heads at times, for sure. In that sense, I agree.
And lastly, just before the last question, I'm curious to hear your answers to this. Obviously, you've interviewed a number of people over the years. What are some questions that you really wish people would ask, but they never do?
Ask me.
I might be shooting myself in the foot.
No. It's a really good question. Oh man, I thought about this, and I couldn't. What would I have loved someone to ask me that's never been asked? Oh man. Okay, it's a bit of a rude question, but nobody's ever asked me what it's like having sex as an amputee. And that might...
Really? You've never been asked that?
No, and that might sound like a stupid question.
Yeah.
Because the answer would probably be like, same as having two legs, but I'm surprised no one's asked it.
I suppose because yours is more hidden.
Yeah, true.
Because it brings me back. It loops me back to. I know you asked this question when you had Brooke. You were on Brooke's podcast. I get asked it all the time.
Oh, really?
It's one question that's like everywhere.
That's interesting.
I've done content pieces about it. I've done podcasts about it. I'm very open. Me and my partner are both very open about it. So like, I get it all the time of like, so how does it work with you two? Or does it work? Or can you? And I'm like, it happens in the most random situations. It's normally drunk people in a pub going, can I just ask you a question? And you're like, the worst thing is I'm weird because I kind of like, my belief system is very much of, look, I'm going to have to deal with the awkward questions, because the more I can help people and teach people, the better they're equipped to then go into another conversation with another person with disability. So I personally take that responsibility on of, I'm never going to be that one that goes, no, I'm not answering that. I'll always go, yeah, all right, let's answer this question. This one, because as well, a lot of it I've heard before, so none of it catches me completely off guard.
That's interesting.
The weirdest one I had, funnily on topic, was I had a no word of a liar 30-year-old man come up to me and my partner after having a similar discussion and going, so if you and your partner had kids, would they come out in wheelchairs? And you sit there and you go,
wow.
First of all, have you ever done biology? Second of all, what?
Wow. I don't actually think, maybe it's interesting, I don't hear people talk enough about disability and sex, and not in a fetish way. I'm not interested in fetishes, but just sex, disabled people having sex. Maybe it's a weird, warped thing that I've got in my head, but I don't think people talk about what it's like being disabled and having sex. You know, well, people with no disabilities talk about sex all the time. So why shouldn't we? But maybe that's just my perverted
definitely
mind.
There's definitely people out there that do it. Like, I've got a lot of friends to do it. So we've got Damien, who's been on the podcast. He's a disability sex educator and sex toy specialist. So he specializes in like accessible sex toys. And then also you've got Kelly Gordon, who's another good. All of these are very good friends of mine and Brooks. You've got Kelly Gordon, who runs With Not For, but she also works with Hot Octopus, which is a disability sex toy company. So there's definitely people out there. It's definitely part of the wider conversation. I think it's the problem you have, and we had this discussion, funny enough, me, Kelly, and Brooke, and Damien, is social media kills it.
Okay.
Because social media doesn't want to advertise the fact that we are humans and this is how we are all here.
Yes, it's natural.
Because of, obviously, it all revolves around protecting young people and children, completely understand it. But then also, for those that are seeking the information, it's harder to find the information.
Okay,
so, yeah, there you go.
There you go. I'll check them out.
But, yeah. That's all right. And then last but not least is the question I ask every guest, which is, what's one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with?
If I had more time to think about this, I could probably think of some better ones. But the one that kind of comes up is the whole issue around transgenders and toilets. And I just think it's such a dumb argument. It's such a stupid thing. The argument being that some women say, I don't want mixed toilets because I don't want trans people to come in there because they may do something. And it's like, it's a dumb argument because, I mean, toilets aren't policed now. There's no security guard on outside toilets. So a man could easily just... this idea that trans women are more likely to be attacking women in toilets, for me, is just a really warped, weird argument against transgender women. I don't know a lot about transgender women or transgender in general, but just on the basic premise of women that are anti-trans women sharing spaces with women, in that example, we can talk about sports and, refuges where there's an element of safety I accept. But with toilets, I often hear, no, we don't want unisex toilets. And it's like, most places now have unisex toilets. Do you know what I mean? Like there's cubicles. A trans woman is no more likely to attack a woman than a man is. So anyway, that's not.
If they've got that intention, they've got that intention.
Exactly.
To like it's there no matter what. And then I think the other thing is though is like I have to hold my hands up. Being the guy in the wheelchair, oftentimes if there's no accessible toilet, it tends to be the women's ones that are more accessible. So I end up in the women's. Several times I've been in bars and been like, don't mind me, girls. I'm just going to go into the cubicle. You guys carry on as normal.
Yes. And there's no one thinking, oh, this guy might do something. Anyway, so it's another one for a different day, maybe. But
I suppose I'm not going to chase them, am I? I'm not going to go very fast.
There is that as well.
And then there's part of the discussion that you just brought up, which is quite, I always believe, is like, so you know this big problem where there needs to be more accessible toilets. One thing I see a lot more particularly in Spain than you see here, is you say about the unisex toilets, that instead of having individual toilets for either male, female, disability, and so on, they have one toilet that serves the whole group. And I always think that's really interesting because so many people go, oh, we haven't got the space for a disabled toilet. And you're like, well, why don't you make one toilet that's accessible? This is where I got it from.
One of my best friends now lives in Spain, and he was one that I was chatting to him about this subject, and he was saying to me just that in Spain, this is not an issue because we just have a space for toilets and there's cubicles. You know what I mean? So it's weird.
It's mad. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man.
I've loved this conversation. I say you've got so much information to give, so much experience, and I feel like a lot of people are going to get value from this. So thank you so much for coming on. Bro. I will link all of Jordan's stuff below, so if you want to check him out, whatever it might be for, I'll link it all below for you to check out. And just thanks again for coming on.
Cheers, bro. Peace.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Not Quite Podcast. Please make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram to get regular updates about the podcast. These